Hello and welcome to this recording of Mental Fitness for Tough Times. I'm sorry that you couldn't join the live call, but I hope you enjoy the recording. Welcome to Mental Fitness for Tough Times. And I love delivering this talk. In fact, last week I did this talk for over 100 people in a big international company, and they loved it. So I hope you will love it too. So the subtitle for this talk is, the 3 reasons why you may be self-sabotaging and preventing yourself from becoming more confident, happy, energetic, and successful. And you all know who I am. I'm Leonora Rhodes, and I'm very, very honored to have you here on the call. So how can you get the best out of this precious time that you have invested on this call? The first thing is to listen actively. And for some of you, it's the end of probably a very long day. So, don't consume this as if it were a Netflix show. I'd love you to actually be listening a little bit more actively than that. I would highly encourage you to take notes. There was a workbook. If you didn't get the workbook, don't worry. It'll be obvious what you'll want to write down as you go along. And there's going to be a few exercises. Whenever I deliver any content, I always want to get you doing exercises so that you can see how this stuff relates to you and how you can start using it right away. I don't want this just to be an academic exercise. And then last but not least, I would love you at the end of the call to commit to taking some action. If there was anything that you learned on this call that was useful, or you were like, yes, I need to do that, that you commit to taking action and actually starting to make some changes in your life if necessary. So very briefly, some of you know me well, but for those who don't, my official title is Dr. Leonora Rhodes, and I qualified as a physician in the UK. I was horrified to realize it's actually 29 years ago now. I'm really showing my age there. So I was a physician in the UK, and I'm also a trained neurotherapist. And alongside that career, I've also worked as a coach and trainer, and I have worked with probably over 3,000 people at least in my career. I've also written a book. I'm a medical writer and editor, and I'm also a course creator. And delivering content like this is one of my favorite things. I recently had COVID. Some of you know this, and was very poorly and nearly died. And when I kind of was coming out of that, I decided that I wanted to devote my life to helping other people be healthier and happier. So that's why I'm doing this call today. So I'm really, really pleased that you're here. So we're going to begin with an exercise called the magic wand. If you've done a course with me before, you've probably done this before, but it's a really good exercise to do. So if you've got the worksheet, you're going to want to turn it over onto the other side and draw a grid that is 2 by 2. So 2 boxes on the top, 2 boxes on the bottom. And for a brief time, I'm going to give you a gift of a magic wand. And this magic wand has the capability of changing whatever you want to change in your life. So my question for you is, with this magic wand, what would you want less of in your life? And what do you want to feel less often? So what do you want less of? And what do you want to feel less often? And just take half a minute to write those down. Wonderful. The next question I have for everyone is, with this magic wand, what do you want to feel more often? And what do you want more of in your life? So what do you want more of in your life? And what do you want to feel more often? Wonderful. And you can carry on with this exercise if you want to afterwards, but it can be very revealing. So I hope that was useful for you. So we're going to begin now with what I call a mindful moment. And the reason for this is I would love it if you could kind of let go of any stresses and strains of the day that you might be bringing to this call with you, so that you can really kind of focus and get the best out of this call. So if you're comfortable, close your eyes. You can keep them open if you like, and take your right hand and place it on your tummy, just above your tummy button. And focus for a moment on your breath. Feel your hand rise and fall with every breath in and out. Breathing in and out. And with the next breath out, blow out all the air from your lungs as if you're blowing up a big balloon. And as you breathe in, feel your tummy move out. Breathing out, your tummy moves in. Breathing in, tummy moves out. Breathing out, tummy moves in. Breathing in, relaxation. Breathing out all your worries. And now, on the count of 3, bring your attention back to the room. 1, 2, 3. Open your eyes and maybe shake your arms a little bit. We don't want anybody falling asleep. Wonderful. So I hope that's just nice, relaxed you a little bit there. I actually added this recently to this presentation. This company that I worked with last week, they had an amazing call where the CEO of the company interviewed one of the senior management team who had lost his best friend at university to suicide. And it kind of brought up the question of, why are some people or do some people go through periods of being mentally unfit or not resilient? And also, to the less extreme, why do sometimes people self-sabotage and not do the things that they know they should be doing? And I'm going to go through this really quickly. This is a quick bird's eye view. So the first thing to know is that the mind is what the brain does. This is a gross oversimplification of things, but it's really helpful to kind of think about this fact that the mind is what the brain does. Now, the brain is not a computer. The brain is really, really incredible, but it's not a computer, and it doesn't work logically. It is a highly complex, ever-changing organ. It's also very highly sensitive to what's going on around you, and it's very liable to damage. There's a very significant design fault in that your brain is housed in this, box of bone, which has some really jagged edges in it. And so if you ever have a head injury, or even, you have a whiplash injury from a car accident or anything like that, it can cause damage to the brain, which can then impact your mental well-being. And the brain works with a combination of chemical and electrical signals. So sometimes when people have, mental health problems, it is purely that the chemical signals in their brain are not working right. The other thing to kind of consider from the aspect of the mind is that you have approximately 6,000 thoughts every day, and many of those thoughts are not true. And I remember the first time that I kind of realized that all of the thoughts I was having were not true. I was like, wow, why did nobody ever tell me this? I must have missed that class in school, but I think most of us are not aware of that. Now, your thoughts change your brain chemistry and the functioning of your brain. And when I was a neurotherapist, I used to be watching people's brainwave activity. Sometimes they would get into a really, really good state, into the brain state that we wanted to be training them. And then I would see this rapid change in the way their brain was working. And I'd often say to them, what just happened? And they'd say, I just had a really negative thought, or I started worrying about something, and it was instantaneous that the thoughts changed the brain chemistry. Thoughts, as you all know, create your feelings and your emotions. And interestingly, the opposite is also true. Your feelings and your emotions can trigger patterns of thinking. I don't know if you've ever just had a feeling that comes out of the blue, where you suddenly feel anxious or fearful. And when you think about it, it's like nothing really triggered that. It just, it just came. And that's because we engage in certain patterns of emotions and feelings. And sometimes those then trigger a thought pattern. We wonder, why am I feeling fearful? And we come up with stories to back up why we're feeling fearful. And sometimes people get stuck in patterns of emotional responses and thought patterns that are not serving them, and they just don't know how to get out of it. And, I've seen this a lot during COVID. A lot of people are stuck in these negative thought patterns, and they just don't have, they don't have the training to get out of it. You may have heard of Martin Seligman. Martin Seligman was kind of the creator of positive psychology. And his work looked at why some human beings are mentally well and other human beings are mentally unwell. And he came up with this theory of well-being that's called PERMA, and then he added on these two extra bits later on. So PERMA stands for positive emotion. In order to feel mentally well, we have to experience positive emotions on a regular basis. He also found that to feel well, we also needed to be engaged in tasks or activities that we enjoyed, that felt good to us. And it was also really good for us if we were able to engage in an activity where we got into a sense of flow, where we kind of felt, I love doing this, and I've kind of lost track of time. I'm sure you've had those moments. We also need to have relationships. That's the R of PERMA. And those relationships need to be positive ones. If we're surrounded by negative people, as you all know, this really affects our mental well-being. We also need to be spending time doing things that are meaningful and purposeful to us. We also need to have a sense of achievement, that we are doing things that are improving our life. Those achievements can be external. So external achievements might be earning some money, or getting a promotion at work, or somebody telling us, wow, you did a really great job, I really appreciate you. But actually, the research shows that it's actually an internal sense of achievement that is sustainable and that ultimately leads to well-being. And so that's things like feeling proud of work that you've done and achieving goals that you set for yourself. So that's the PERMA side of well-being. And we're not going to go into that anymore today, but it's just good to know this. It's also extremely important, because the mind is what the brain does, that your brain is healthy. And also not going to go into that today, but you need to be healthy. Your brain needs to be healthy. Otherwise, it's a real uphill battle to be mentally healthy. And then the final piece of Martin Seligman's theory of well-being was that we also needed to be resilient, mentally resilient, or mentally fit. And that's what we're going to talk about for the rest of today. So just wanted to give you some context of where this piece of work kind of fits into well-being theory. So what is this mental fitness that I have been talking about? So here's a great definition from a guy called Shirzad Sharmin. You're going to hear me talk about him a few times today. So Shirzad says that mental fitness is your capacity to respond to life's challenges with positive rather than a negative mindset. And a lot of research has been done on this. If you are mentally fit, it impacts your physical and mental well-being. It impacts your performance, your peace of mind, and your general wellness. It also allows you to develop and sustain healthy relationships. And it also improves your quality of life. And there's also some research that shows that it improves longevity as well. But I personally think quality of life is more important than longevity. I'm going to get you to do another exercise right now. I'd like you to have a think about what have been the costs of you not being 100% mentally fit until now. If you're somebody who's already mentally fit, then maybe you want to think about what it's cost the people that you know or the people that you love. So we're going to take a minute to write down what have been the costs of being mentally unfit so far in your life. And remember, these costs might be physical or mental well-being. They might be costs in performance. They might be costs in just peace of mind and happiness. And it might be about quality of life. So just take a minute to write down what have been the costs of being mentally unfit up until now. Wonderful. So I hope you've got some things written down there. I'm wondering if anybody is willing to share. Anybody brave enough to be willing to share of some of the costs, and you can share them in the chat, or if you're even braver, come off mute. Are you aware of any of the costs that being not 100% mentally fit has had to you up until this time?
Leonora,
Yeah.
I'm here.
Wonderful.
Well, on account of the lack of mental fitness and the discipline and the focus, I didn't get some professional credentials, which I think might have cost me well over $1 million over the last 10, 15 years. So
wow.
that's just monetary. So.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And that is, that's been a big cost. And we've also had another share, which is that of happiness. There is a battle going on in your mind and the mind of every other person on the planet. Even, I will say this to my clients, even the Dalai Lama and the Pope have this battle going on in their mind. And it's the battle between the ancient parts of the brain that are all about survival and eating, reproducing and surviving, and just basically getting through the day, and the more highly evolved, wise, sage-like, smart part of the brain that lives in a state of ease and flow. So this battle is going on all the time, and it's going on between different regions of the brain. So I want to introduce you to positive intelligence. And positive intelligence is an operating system for mental fitness. And I think you're going to love it because it's remarkably simple. And I love that it's so simple. I don't like complicated stuff. So this theory came from several research fields. It came from neuroscience, positive psychology, which is Martin Seligman's work, cognitive psychology, which is about figuring out why people think the way they do, and also performance science, so looking at like peak performers. And the research has also been backed up by research on hundreds of CEOs and their executive teams, Stanford students, world-class athletes, and 500,000 participants from 50 countries. And I mentioned this last bit because this shows that this work is not just, it's not just going to work in the States or in Europe. This is work that has been proven to work in, across the country in all sorts of different cultures. And this research, if you're super nerdy like me, this research is summarized in Shirzad Sharman's book, Positive Intelligence. So what are these 3 core muscles of mental fitness that I've been promising to tell you about? Well, they are, the first is the saboteur interceptor. Don't worry, I'll explain to you what this means in a moment. So first is saboteur, interceptor. The second is the sage. And the third is the self-command muscle. And they're all muscles. And a bit like, muscles, say, in your arm, they, if we don't do work on them, they're going to be weak. And if we do work on them, they can be strengthened. So what do I mean by saboteurs? So the saboteurs motivate us through negative emotions like fear, stress, anger, guilt, shame, and insecurity. Now, the sage, on the other hand, motivates you through positive emotions, through empathy, curiosity, creativity, passion, and purpose, and all those other good positive emotions like happiness. So the saboteurs can generate success. Some of you on this call might be saying, but the saboteurs have actually led me to be successful. And that is true for a lot of people who are highly successful, high achievers. They might have got a long way through using those saboteur drivers, those negative energies. But the problem is this success is sometimes not sustainable. And almost inevitably, it is not accompanied by happiness or fulfillment. Now, the sage, on the other hand, allows you to be successful and that success to be sustained in the long term, and also allows you to be happy and feel fulfilled in life. Now, I mentioned earlier that these two competing parts of the brain are different parts of the brain. So the saboteurs are in the kind of older parts of the brain. This is like the old crocodile or reptile part of the brain, and also the limbic system, which comes from like our monkey ancestors, and also some parts of the left brain. The left brain is all about logic and reason. But the sage is housed in the prefrontal cortex, in the empathy circuitry, and the parts of the right brain, which is all about curiosity and creativity. So there are 10 saboteurs and there are 5 sage powers. So let's take a look at these briefly now. So the saboteur interceptor, I'm going to tell you a story to kind of tell you a little bit about this. So this was a client that I worked with. So William was a 55-year-old CEO of a tech company. He sold his tech company and became a business coach. So this guy was pretty successful, I think you'd all agree. However, his whole life, he had felt like he was not good enough and felt like he was a fraud and was constantly worried that he was going to be found out. His problems that he had led to a divorce, and he was pretty much estranged from his children as well. He was pretty good at making friends, but he tended not to keep them. He tended to fall out with people. And his top saboteurs, and you're going to learn what these all mean in a minute, were that of a hyperachiever, a controller, and he was also hyper-rational. And his mental fitness score, which is called the PQ score, his mental fitness score was 38%. And I'm going to give you the link to an assessment that you can take to find out what your mental fitness score is right now. And over 75% is considered a really good mental fitness score. Anything below that, you tend to be in kind of a downward spiral of mental unfitness. And William started working with me because he had recently been diagnosed with high blood pressure and had a suspected heart attack. But the doctors actually finally concluded that it was just severe chronic stress. So the saboteurs are in part genetically programmed. And so saboteurs tend to run in families. For example, one of the saboteurs is called hypervigilant. And, I'm sure you know people who are anxious and their whole family is anxious. So in part, it's genetically programmed. But our saboteurs are reinforced often in our childhood or periods of our life when we are vulnerable, in order to protect us. So, if you learn that you've got some of these saboteurs, don't be angry about them, because they were likely developed at a time in your life when you needed protection from something. And I certainly can relate to this when I look at my own saboteurs. So the first of the saboteurs, and this is called the master saboteur, and everybody has it, even the Dalai Lama and the Pope, is that of the judge. So the judge is he's a pretty mean man or woman, or male or female. And the judge turns its attention in 3 directions. The first is to you. And the judge says things like, "You idiot, why did you make that mistake?" Or, "You're not good enough and nobody will ever love you." And the judge may compare you to other people harshly. And I don't know about you, but the judge is often meaner to you than you'd ever be to anybody else. My judges really, really nasty to me sometimes. Now then the judge, that's not enough. The judge also turns its attention to other people. It looks for what's wrong in other people, their imperfections and their mistakes. And the judge is always giving negative meaning to other people's behavior. And then the third focus of the judge is to situations and circumstances, to the world you live in. And the judge is constantly finding reasons for why you can't be happy or why you can't be successful. And the judge gets very upset when things don't go your way. And your judge may have been very active during COVID, complaining that things are not fair, or that, you know, why is the world so scary, or when are things going to return to normal? And I mentioned earlier I had COVID pneumonia, and afterwards my judge just went wild for a couple of weeks, and I was mad with myself. I was mad with the people who gave me COVID, and even the people who didn't. I was mad with the government, you name it. I was mad with everybody, and it was not a healthy train of mind that I got into. Thankfully, I had the tools to get out of it. So let's talk about these other saboteurs that we have. So there are 9 accomplice saboteurs, and some people, some of these saboteurs that you're going to hear the names of, some people have them at a very, have them very low. Some people have all of them, and they're all kind of moderate, and then they might have 1 or 2 that are high. Usually, most people have 2 top saboteurs. So the first is the controller. The controller wants to be in charge of everything, because if I'm not in charge of everything, anything could go wrong. So the controller needs to be in charge. Then there's the hyperachiever. The hyperachiever believes there's always something else you need to be striving towards. And the hyperachiever tells you, you are never good enough. Then there's the restless, and the restless gets bored easily and is always looking for something more interesting, more fun, more. And this is one of my saboteurs. I get bored really, really easily. Then we have the stickler. Now the stickler wants everything to be perfect all of the time. And as my old boss, Tony Robbins, used to say, perfection is the lowest standard of all, because perfection is not even possible, and it's most certainly not sustainable. Then we have the pleaser. Now the pleaser wants everybody to be happy and often sacrifices the self in order to make other people happy. I'm sure you know somebody like that if you're not like that yourself. Then we have the hypervigilant. The hypervigilant is constantly afraid. There is danger all around. I need to be on the lookout because something bad is just about to happen. Then we have the avoider. The avoider says, you're already pretty stressed. Why don't you just avoid doing the things that don't need to be done right now in this moment? And so the avoider kind of tells you the lie that you can avoid stuff right now and, put your head in the sand. But the problem with that is, often, it just adds to your stress later on. Then we have the victim. The victim feels that bad things always happen to me. Why me? And the victim engages in self-pity. Then last but certainly not least, we have the hyperrational. The hyperrational is very logical and can be inflexible. Things have to be done a certain way, and they have to be backed up by facts and figures. All of the saboteurs are harmful in the extreme. Like I said earlier, we all have a little bit of most of them, and some aspects of the saboteur behavior can be useful, but when it's in the extreme, or when it's coming up in situations where it really isn't serving you, then it is harmful. So those are the saboteurs. And so if you go to this, please don't do this now. I'd love you to pay attention to this, but I would highly encourage you to go and there's 2 assessments at positiveintelligence.com. The first is the saboteur assessment, and you see one from Sarah here. And there's also an assessment of your mental fitness. You'll get that PQ score out of 100, and remember 75% is considered to be what you're aiming for or above. So that is how a saboteur assessment would give you the scores. So I often get asked the question, are negative emotions good for you? And the answer is yes and no. So our emotions are action signals, and I'm going to compare emotions to pain. So pain is an action signal that I think all of us are very, very familiar with. So if you put your hand on a hot stove, your hand sends signals up to your brain to say, move your hand, you dummy, you're burning your hand. So this is an action signal that we can all easily recognize. But our emotions are also action signals. Our nervous system is really, really smart. And if we are feeling emotions, it's likely that our body is trying to tell us something. So when we ignore our emotions and push them aside, we're missing some important action signals from our body. Now, the problem is, like pain signals, you don't want your body to still be feeling pain once you've moved your hand, otherwise you'd never get anything done. So emotions are meant to give you a signal briefly so that you take action and then you move on. So negative emotions are really, really useful, but only very briefly as an action signal or alert signal. If you stay in a negative emotion, it hurts your ability to see clearly and respond with empathy, curiosity, creativity, or laser-focused action. And if you are feeling negative emotions, that part of your brain where the saboteurs live is being activated. And it's likely that one or possibly more of your saboteurs are going to be showing up and preventing you from being your best self. So here's, I worked with William. He went through my 6-week program, and he himself, as you just saw, was a coach. And he said that he'd done a lot of personal development trainings and made great progress in his life, but he still was self-sabotaging, which stopped him from getting to the next level. And so he did this PQ work, he did a deep dive into it, and finally found a way to access the best version of himself. He said that this work was the missing piece, and he wished he discovered it years ago. And I hear that from almost everybody that I work with. I wish I'd known about this work before now. So what about the sage? So the sage lives in the more highly evolved part of your brain. It's not worried about survival and just getting through the day. So the sage engages in positive emotions, happiness, gratitude, calmness, all of that good stuff. The sage activates peace and calm. You have clear-headed focus when you're in the sage, and you can also be creative. If you've got problems, you can be creative about your problem solving. The sage also helps you see the big picture of what is really going on, and the sage helps you move through life with ease and flow. If life feels difficult for you, it's likely that you're not in the sage as much as you could be, because when you're in the sage, things just feel like that they are easy and that they flow. So how do we actively develop the sage powers? So the sage operates from the perspective that everything that happens, every circumstance, can be turned into a gift and opportunity. And And this is something that you have to practice, and you practice it by looking at things, at bad things that have happened in your life or things that have not gone your way, and finding the gift and opportunity in them. And when you do this often, it helps you access and switch on the sage perspective. And sometimes it's really not easy. There've been a few things that have happened in my life, and, you know, at the time, if you'd said to me, there was a gift and opportunity in this awful thing that was happening to you, I probably would have slapped you and said you were an idiot. But when you look back on these times, nearly, I would say 99% of things that happen in your life can be turned into a gift and opportunity. Now, the sage has 5 amazing powers. The first power is the power to empathize with yourself and other people. Unlike the judge, who's just kind of mean and, you know, making unfair comparisons all the time. So empathy is the first sage power. The next sage power is to explore and to become deeply curious about what is happening and not just take things on face value. The next power is to innovate and be creative in your problem solving. The next sage power is to navigate and to guide yourself with the compass of meaning and purpose, so that you're navigating towards the things that you really, really want in life. And then the last is, you know, all of these are great, but if you fail to take action, you're not going to get very far. So the last of the sage powers is the sage to activate or take action, but in a decisive, clear-headed, laser-focused way, rather than running around like a headless chicken. And when you start to activate the sage regularly, like I mentioned earlier, it's strengthening that muscle so that you can access it more easily, and it will be stronger when you do. The last of the 3 muscles is the muscle of self-command. And I don't know if any of you have ever done anything crazy like, you know, punching through a wooden board, or walking on hot coals. I know Rosa's on the call. She has done both of these with me. You know, it takes a lot of self-command in order to be able to do something where your body is kind of screaming, no, 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 that would be a very foolish thing to do. But also we need self-command for things that, you know, that we want to do in everyday life. And self-command comes up in being able to self-command your mind if you're getting into patterns of negative thinking. You need self-command if you know exactly what you need to do, but you're just not doing it. You need self-command if you're feeling negative emotions often, to say, I don't want to feel these negative emotions. I'm going to choose to shift. You need self-command if you're feeling stressed, overwhelmed, and burnt out. You need self-command if you're in a stressful situation to get through it in the best way. You need self-command if you're going to interact with others in a way that afterwards you won't regret it. You know, you won't regret what you said or the way you behaved. And you need self-command if you're not going to worry about things that have happened in the past or worry about the future. And you need self-command if you don't want to engage in anger, frustration, impatience, jealousy. So I have a question for you again. And thank you, Rosa. Rosa was saying, yes, totally. We've done some crazy things together that have needed a lot of self-command. So my question for you is, how much of the time are you fully in command of your mind? And how much of the time are you just running on autopilot? So just write that down. Just have a guesstimate. You know, nobody knows for certain, but how much of your waking hours are you fully in command of your mind? And just write that down. Wonderful. And if it's less than 70% of the time, there's probably some room for improvement. I always tell my clients, your mind is like an old iPhone battery. I don't know if you've ever had an old iPhone. If you have, you know, when you first get an iPhone, and I think, you know, the other phones don't have this problem because they have better battery life, but iPhones are notorious for this. After about 18 months, the battery stops working very well, and you need to charge that iPhone battery, you know, several times a day, especially if you're using it a lot, because otherwise it's going to run out on you. And your mind and your nervous system is like an old iPhone battery. It needs recharging on a regular basis. And if you think it doesn't, you're kidding yourself. So how do you recharge your batteries and how do you get self-command? And the answer is with something that we call PQ reps. And PQ reps really are mini mindfulness exercises that build the self-command muscle. And before I came to this work, I had been meditating regularly for 10 minutes every day in the first thing in the morning, and it was great. But the problem was life would happen during the day, and then I would find myself getting stressed. The idea of the PQ reps is that you do them regularly throughout the day so that they are recharging your batteries and also helping you access. They basically, when they've done brain scans of people doing PQ reps, the saboteur stress part of the brain quietens down and the sage part of the brain gets woken up. It's incredible to see it happening. Just a quick testimonial, and then we're going to do a PQ rep today. And this was, I've just finished working with Tara from Pennsylvania, and she said, I can't recommend this program or Leonora enough. I participated in the program and did side-by-side coaching with Leonora over the last 6 weeks, and the results were phenomenal. And I have to say, when Tara started working with me, COVID had hit her very hard, and she was just feeling like she often said she felt like a fraud at work, and very successful person, but just never felt good enough. So she said that her mental state was more positive, she had more energy and felt more focused and clear. And if you are feeling stuck or you want to break bad habits that are impeding your happiness and success, I would strongly recommend doing this work. I loved working with Tara. So let's do a PQ rep. And what I love about PQ reps, if you've ever done meditation, some people don't really like meditation because they have a really busy mind, but I think you're going to love PQ reps because I have a super busy mind, but they work really well. So I want you to take your fingertips of your 2 index fingers and put them together. You can close your eyes if you like. It's better if you close your eyes, keep them open, it's up to you. Rub your fingertips together with such intensity that you can feel the ridges. Feel the ridges on your fingertips. Now put all your fingertips of your right hand against all the fingertips of your left hand and rub them all together. Feel the ridges on all of those fingers and thumb. And now move your right hand fingertips down your left hand, down the fingers, onto the palm of your hand. And gently move around the palm. Notice the ridges on your palm. Notice the deep lines. Notice the temperature. Become exquisitely aware of what you feel. Now bring all your fingertips back together and open your eyes. Wonderful. And shake your arms out. So I did that one with you because it tends to be a really big favorite for people. And, people who've I've tried meditation 100 times and didn't like it, they find that exercise really, really impactful. So, and there are many, many different types of PQ exercise. And the idea is it's about being very present, and it's about activating all of your senses. And there's a wonderful PQ rep that's auditory. And one of the women who was in the last group of pods that I ran said that it was really weird. She'd become really, really aware of sounds, and doing these exercises was making her more tuned in to the sounds that were going on around her, which is pretty cool. So a recap of this very simple operating system. The first thing is your negative emotions are useful, but just for a very brief moment. And so if you're feeling a negative emotion, stop, ask yourself what's going on. And if you've gone into saboteur mode, intercept it, stop it if it is not serving you. The second is to activate those wonderful sage perspective and the sage powers. And the third is to do PQ reps or mini mindfulness exercises. And like I said, these have two functions. First, to recharge your batteries and to shift you from saboteur to sage. The first is to recharge your batteries, and the second is to shift you from saboteur to sage. So it really is, I love it for its simplicity. So I'm going to be honest with you. I am still, and always have been, a serial dabbler. I have taken a million courses, and I love trying things. And I used to have a pattern that I would try things for a short period of time, and then I would hit a plateau or a problem would arise and I would just give up. And sometimes I would just get bored with things. It would just, I'd do it for a short period of time. And karate was a good example of this. I had my first boyfriend at university was a black belt in karate. So I decided I would start karate, and I did it for 2 months, and I very proudly got 2 stripes on my white belt. That's how amazing I was at karate. And so I dabbled for a while, and then I gave up. And thankfully, there have been other things in my life where I have committed to mastery. As you all know, I became a doctor, and I've also been a master coach. So there are things in my life where I've committed to mastery. And I am all for dabbling. But if you want to really change something in your life and have sustainable change, you have to commit to mastery. So with this mental fitness stuff, if you are happy to dabble, and this, I tell you this for nothing, this work isn't for everybody, and it isn't for everybody now. And you might be like, oh my God, I've got way too much going on to take on another thing. And what we've done is I've just given you your first black stripe on your white belt of mental fitness. And if this is all you need right now, brilliant. Take away what you've learned today. But if you know this is the time when you need to commit to finally mastering your mental fitness and command of your mind, then you need to commit to mastery. So what do you need to do to gain mastery? The first thing is you need the right plan. And, if you've ever learned a martial art or any skill like that, you'll know you need a plan. It's not random how they teach you to become a master of anything. Next, you need the right strategies. And the last thing is you need the right help. You need somebody who's done this work before and who can guide and help you. And you also need somebody who's a good fit for you. And I'm a really big believer in coaching. It's about finding a coach who's a good fit for you, because that's the only way that it's going to work well. So I'm going to quickly, if you are interested in mastering your mental fitness, I'm going to quickly tell you about the 6-week program. Like I said, if you are not ready for this right now, it's absolutely fine. It's a 6-week program. Every week you watch a 1-hour video with Shirzad Sharmin, and he's the guy who wrote Positive Intelligence. And it really is a brilliant program. I can't recommend it enough. And it comes out on a Saturday. You have all weekend to watch it. It's, it's advised that you try and watch it by the end of Monday if you can. Then you get access to an amazing app on your phone that has these PQ reps, and it says 15 minutes a day. You start with 3 minutes in the morning where you have some learning. So Shirzad tells you about the concept for the day, and then you do 4 2-minute PQ reps during the day. And there's a ton of variety. If you're somebody like me who gets bored very easily, it's amazing because it's different every single day. And then at the end of the day, there's a place to journal how you've gone on with the exercises of the day. You also get a free copy of the Positive Intelligence book in PDF and audio. I'm an audio girl myself. I haven't read a book in forever, so that's really useful. So you can read about all of the research if you're interested. You also get access to 7 weekly pod meetings. These are 30 to 45-minute meetings in a group with other people who are at exactly the same stage of the program as you, and it's weekly group coaching and accountability with me. And it's funny that the last pods I ran, there were a couple of people who were like, oh, I wasn't sure about the pods, but they absolutely loved them. And you also have a pod community where you can kind of chat with the other people in your group on a daily basis if you want to, but you don't have to. Some logistics. There are 8 people in a maximum 8 people in a pod. So it's small. It isn't like, 500 people on the call. There are 2 pods starting on the 1st of June, which is a Tuesday, but there are also private pods available. And sometimes this works really well if you might have a group of friends or family, or even in a business who you think, wow, this would be amazing to all do this together so that you are all speaking the same language, then get in touch with me because I'm very happy to run a private pod too. So this is the link if you are interested in taking the program. So it's my website. And I think hopefully Rosa is able to share the link in the chat if that's helpful too. So Rosa, that's actually the wrong link. So ignore what Rosa just posted. That was the first link that I sent Rosa, which was the wrong one. So that's my bad. So apologies, Rosa. But it's Dr. Leonora Rhodes at drleonorarhodes.com/fit May 2021. So sorry about that, Rosa. The deadline to register is this Friday because there's a lot of setup needs to happen before we start running the pod, and you need to do the assessments, and I need to get the pod groups ready. So the cost of a seat in a pod and doing the program is, if you look on the Positive Intelligence website, you can get it for $1,000, but I offer it to you all beautiful people for $750. If you're interested in a private pod, you can have up to 8 people in a private pod for $3,000. For the first 5 people who sign up for the training, you get a free coaching session worth $250. And in that, we can either go through your saboteur assessment and dig deep into your top 1 or 2, or we can talk about whatever's on your mind. So it's up to you. So that's the logistics. Next steps for you. After you get off this call, I would urge you, and I do this for all of my trainings, to write down what are the 1 to 3 key learnings that you've got from this. Like, what was interesting about today? What was something that was maybe new, or just a really good reinforcement of what you already know? Then write down 1 to 3 action steps you can take. Remember, you can only change your life if you take action. If you have any questions, if you're not sure, if you just want to know a little bit more about the work I do, or if there was something that you didn't understand today, please drop me an email and we can have a chat about it. And last but not least, for those of you who are ready for mastery right now, then please go to the website and sign up for the program. And I am super grateful for you all for showing up today and joining me on this. I hope it shows. I absolutely love this work, and I really, really want to it's been so powerful to me and to my clients that I just want to get this out to as many people as possible. I really honor you for showing up today and doing this work and investing your precious time. And I hope you've got some really useful golden nuggets from it. And I hope to see you again soon.